for you? Okay, check. Okay, I believe all of you already have the file, which is in chapter 7. The first things I would like to say is, you see the blue like structure right here. This is a beta chain of hemoglobin. And you want to understand that the hemoglobin molecule is composed by 4 of similar size of this. It's called 2 alpha chain and 2 beta chain. So there are 4 structure like this working together to carry oxygen. Okay, so you understand? Okay, and this is the first thing I want to give you the review. Another thing is that if you know that the hemoglobin is 4 subunit tetramer of this, and the location of the hemoglobin is actually inside the red blood cell. Okay, on the left side you can see this is the red blood cell looks like. Okay. So Ali, is that clear for everybody?
Ya, sana ya.
Oke, hello, a moment. De, untuk yang tidak berkepentingan, tolong mikrofonnya di-off-kan dulu. De, untuk yang tidak berkepentingan, tolong mikrofonnya dimatikan dulu. Jadi tadi apa yang disampaikan Prof. Kuo, ya, hari ini topik kita adalah hemoglobin, dan yang kalian lihat di layar kaca kalian itu ada warna biru. Itu adalah bentuk dari protein, lipatan protein yang merupakan perwujudan dari hemoglobin, dan hemoglobin ini terdapat di sel darah merah.
So why this is important is because there are many people know that very famous clinical measure is called HbA1c, which is measured in the blood. But actually, people tend to ignore that hemoglobin is in plasma, which is not true. The hemoglobin is functional only when the molecule is inside the red blood cell. Okay, so I will talk about this later. Okay. Okay, if you look at the screen on the left side, this is figure 7.1, and this is the structure of myoglobin. Okay, you see this, which is very similar structure as the beta chain of hemoglobin. Okay, and the myoglobin has also had the oxygen carrying capacity, but the location is different from hemoglobin. The myoglobin is located inside muscle cell, skeletal muscle, and cardiac muscle. Okay. Okay. And the reason that the myoglobin is important is because the myoglobin also has the oxygen binding site. If you look at here, you see here, this is the oxygen binding site of myoglobin. Okay. And if you look further at hemoglobin, you have similar molecule right here, and that is the binding site of oxygen on hemoglobin. Okay, is that clear? Good, very good. So you understand that in the blood, all oxygen is carried by red blood cell. And to be more specific, is the hemoglobin inside the red blood cell. Okay? And you also understand that the oxygen is enriched in your lung. okay? And the peripheral tissues in your body are consuming oxygen, and therefore the peripheral tissues is going to have much less oxygen concentration compared to the lung. Okay, is that clear? Very good. Okay. So think about this. The function of hemoglobin is to carry oxygen from lung into the peripheral tissues where the oxygen is consumed, right? Okay. Then how can a hemoglobin know where to bind oxygen and when to release oxygen? Okay, think about this. The hemoglobin is designed to bind oxygen, right? And the function of the hemoglobin is to carry oxygen from oxygen-enriched environment and also provide oxygen when the environmental oxygen is low. Okay, and how can this happen? Well, hemoglobin is hemoglobin, right? So the hemoglobin need to know the situation. Okay, in the lung, the hemoglobin tend to bind oxygen, right? But when hemoglobin go into the deep side of the peripheral tissues, it tend to release oxygen, right? And how is this function achieved? And this is the main topic today. Okay, Ari, would you like to translate to your student? At the same time, I'm going to translate in Chinese here.
Alright, Lause. Oke, Dek. Jadi apa yang tadi disampaikan oleh Prof. Kuo, hari ini pembahasannya adalah hemoglobin dan myoglobin. Apa yang membedakan hemoglobin dan myoglobin? Dari strukturnya mereka sama, namun ketika kita berbicara tentang hemoglobin, ini terdapat ada di dalam sebagai bagian dari sel darah merah terutama, ya, dan sedangkan myoglobin ini terletak di skeletal muscle atau otot rangka begitu, ataupun jaringan-jaringan yang ada di dalam tubuh kita begitu. Dan pertanyaan penting dari Prof. Kuo tentang topik kita adalah ketika hemoglobin yang mana fungsinya sebagai pengikat dan pengangkut oksigen yang kita konsumsi melalui sistem pernafasan dan disebarkan ke pembuluh darah, itu kapan hemoglobin melepaskan oksigen dan bisa diterima myoglobin dan bagaimana? Begitu. Okay, Lause, I just did translate and now you can continue, please. Lause, I think you still mute the microphone.
Okay, sorry, I forgot. Okay, if you look at the graph right here, this is figure 7.8. This is the oxygen binding by hemoglobin. Okay, if you look at on the x-axis, this is the oxygen concentration. Okay, and from here, this is the y-axis is we call fractional saturation, representing how much oxygen is bound to hemoglobin molecule. Okay, 看得清楚吗? Okay, so from here you can see when oxygen concentration is higher, the oxygen is tend to bind to hemoglobin. Okay, for example, if you go to if the environmental oxygen concentration is 50 torr, then you can see from here to here, about 80% of oxygen is occupied on the hemoglobin molecule. Okay. On the other hand, if you have low oxygen concentration at 25 torr, then you can have only 50% of hemoglobin has the oxygen occupation. So the oxygen binding to hemoglobin is depending on the oxygen concentration. Okay, so when oxygen concentration in lung is very high, right, the hemoglobin tends to bind. But the peripheral tissues has low oxygen, it would tend to release oxygen. Okay, but you must pay a good attention on the curve because the curve is not linear, right? The curve is not linear, right? Okay. And what is the advantage of least linearity? Let me just explain this. 所以你们看到 hemoglobin 它结合氧气，实际上是跟氧气的浓度有关。氧气浓度高，它结合；那氧气浓度低的地方，它就倾向释放嘛，哈。但是你们特别要注意的是，它并不是一条直线。哦，那为什么它不是一条直线呢？因为它的结合方式是称为叫做合作性的结合。Okay, so if you look at the curve, this is not a linear relationship between the oxygen concentration in your environment and how much oxygen is going to occupy on the hemoglobin. And the reason this is not linear is because the hemoglobin binds oxygen cooperatively. Okay, what people ask, what do you mean by cooperatively? Let me just explain this for you. Okay. If you look at the graph right here, the T means, let me just give you another example. It's much easier for you to understand. Right here. Okay, right here, if you look at this, these are the 4 subunits of hemoglobin. Okay, and you can see that when oxygen concentration is low, you have nothing bound to the hemoglobin, right? So from the left to the right, the oxygen concentration from very low to very high, right? But if you look at the arrow, okay, let me just explain what is the T state and what is the R state. Okay. Let me just find the text. Okay. Okay, if you look at the text right here, you need to go to last page. Okay, right here, this is good.遮住了。我要怎么把这个移下来呢？这个我可以往上移嘛？因为它遮住了那个啊。我要如何把这个东西移上去？移开，这个东西要怎么移开？它遮住了那个。Ali, do you know the way to move the? This is blocking the text. 这叫什么移？
我说他们电脑只是看不到，这是指电脑的。
啊，这是我的。OK, good. 不是，我要把它移开，因为它遮住了这个 text。他没有办法哈。
因为我的电脑可以。
你的电脑可以？哦，真的。
哦。
OK。
哦，因为他把他的人像在下面，然后把那个人像
遮住了。好，没关系，给我那个书好了。OK。Page 190. 90. Sorry, the menu is blocking the text. So please go to 198. 198. At the bottom of 198. Okay. So if you go to the bottom of the text, you see in okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. It's
okay, good.
Clear. No problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah, please go to page 199. Okay, please read the end of the paragraph. Okay, can you see that? Because okay, can you see that? Is the cooperative binding of oxygen by hemoglobin better described by concert and sequential model? Please ignore that. Okay, let me just this is old, right? 这是老的还是新的书？图书馆借的，那应该是新的才对啊。Okay, it might be the different version. Okay, just a second. Portrait structure. Okay, can you see the graph right here? Okay, here. The quaternary structure observed in the deoxyform of hemoglobin, we call the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, this means the oxygen without binding on hemoglobin. Okay, so it's often referred as T or TENS. Okay. And there's another term. When it is fully oxygenated form, we call oxyhemoglobin. It's referred as the R. Okay. So this is represented, T and R representing the oxygen binding. Okay. And you can see that the binding of oxygen is triggering the shift of hemoglobin tetramer from the T to R state. Okay, so where to find this? if you look at the graph right here, you see two arrow, right? Two arrow. Okay. So when there is no oxygen, it tends to be the hemoglobin tend to not bind to oxygen, right? But if you look at when oxygen is binding right here, only one molecule, you can see the arrow is going to change, right? It becoming more favorable to bind oxygen. And if you go right further, you can see there are two oxygen is binding to the hemoglobin. Then you see almost equilibrium, right? So that means if you have one oxygen binds to the hemoglobin, it helps the entire molecule to bind more oxygen. Do you see that? 了解我的意思吗? Okay, so this is what we call the cooperative binding. So that is very similar to a way that if you have a four partner in one company, okay, if you one company, you have four employee. If one of the employee earn money, it facilitates another three person to earn money. So that is what we call cooperativity. So do you understand what I'm talking about?
Yep. Yellow, sir.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so that is the reason you do not see the binding relationship between hemoglobin and oxygen like a linear relationship. It's a cooperative relationship. And let me just to give you the idea, what is the advantage to have a cooperative binding curve? Okay, let me check. Okay, right here. Okay, if you look at the figure 7.13, okay, you see the purple line. Okay, the purple line is the binding curve of hemoglobin. And the X is the oxygen concentration. And the Y is how much oxygen binds to hemoglobin. Okay, the percentage. Okay. Okay, if you look at what is the normal concentration of oxygen in lung? It's about 40. Okay, and how about in peripheral tissues? It's about 20. Okay, so if you look at between 40 and 20, you see a big change in the fractional saturation. 40 is right here, 20 is right here, 40 is right here. Very small range of the oxygen change. But if you see the percent bound to oxygen is changing from about 0.1, 10% to almost 80%. So what does it mean? So this means the small change in environmental oxygen concentration is going to make you release a lot of oxygen. So in the lung, 80% of the oxygen is bound on hemoglobin. But when the hemoglobin is transporting oxygen to your periphery, which is 20, then you are going to release huge amount of oxygen to your peripheral tissues. So that is the advantage of the cooperative binding. So do you understand this? 懂我的意思吗 ？Okay, let me explain in Chinese.
So let me explain to my student in Indonesia. So maybe you,
Okay, that's good.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can mute me.
yeah, okay.
Oke, baik Dek. Tadi apa yang disampaikan Prof. Kuo di awal, beliau itu kan menyampaikan, menanyakan
被
antara
了解到哈，就是说在我们的肺部，
hemoglobin
它的
dengan
氧气大概是
myoglobin
40，
itu
那在
bagaimana
我周围组织的氧气大概是20。
mereka
可
akan
是你看哦，40跟20，
memberikan
它的
oksigennya ke
氧气释
myoglobin.
放的比例
Jadi
是从大约
hemoglobin
80%，
itu akan mengikat oksigen
降到只
jika
剩下
di
10%， 也就是说
dalam
它释放的
jaringan
70%
tersebut
的氧气，
oksigen
从
konsentrasinya itu tinggi,
hemoglobin 的身上
maka
释
hemoglobin
放了
akan
大约
mengikat
70%
oksigen
的氧
tersebut.
气
Namun
到它的周
jika
围
di
组织。
dalam jaringan tersebut
那怎么做到的？其实它主要的
konsentrasi
原因就
oksigennya
是因为 hemoglobin 它
menurun,
的合作性的一
maka
种结合的方式，
hemoglobin
使
tersebut
得你就是说
akan
什么叫做合作性的结
melepaskan
合
ya,
方式？
melepaskan
举个例子哈，
oksigen yang diikatnya dan
你
berpindah
们
ke
知道
dalam
那个
myoglobin.
选举，
Nah,
之前
keadaan
选举那个谁
konsentrasi
啊？
oksigen antara di
到韩国瑜。
paru-paru dan di
好，
katakanlah
好，
otot
你如果
rangka
是
itu
到韩国， 你就会发现一件事情，
jika di
韩
paru-paru
国瑜在选
itu
举的时候，
dua kali
当
lebih
他损失
dua
了
kali lipat lebih
2-3 个
banyak
支持者的
konsentrasi
时候，
oksigennya dibandingkan di
他的
jaringan
票没有掉那么快，
bukan
对
paru-paru
不对？
seperti halnya
可是当
otot
他
rangka.
失去
Begitu.
了30%的支持的时候，他的支持率马上就是
Dan
陡峭
tadi
性的下降。
beliau Prof.
这
menyampaikan
个代表什
ada
么意
yang
思？你知
disebut
道吗？
dengan hukum
代表人
kooperatif.
跟人之间是有合作性
Ya,
的， 也
kooperativity
就是
itu
说，我的支持
hukum
度
yang
会影响到你的
menjelaskan
支持度，
tentang
或者是你的
keterlibatan
支持度会影
satu
响到我
partner
的支持，
kemudian
对
bisa
某个对
membawa
象，这个就
lebih
叫做合作性的
lagi begitu untuk keefektivitasan kerja
这个
begitu.
结合。所以所有的面向都具有这样子的一个特性。Okay, let me just give you one example that the cooperative property is one of the main feature for life. Okay, if you look at machine, then you do not find cooperative property. Okay, if you look at any machine like a car, you see many parts, right? Like human has a lot of protein put together to operate the entire body. But if you look at the car, it's also very similar. A lot of auto part put together to operate the entire machine. But the main difference is if you look at the human body, you see a lot of human part, they work cooperatively, unlike machine, like a car. Okay, let me just give you one example. We talk about election, okay? If you look at, they are candidate. One candidate want to be the president of one country, okay? So if you see one person is going to support this candidate, and because the supporter has relative, right? And has friend, and their friend will be influenced by the supporter. And therefore, if you want to win the election, you only affect several, then you start to get vote, right? Because people are communicating to each other, right? So that is how the vote is, support rate is increasing. But if you look at on the other side, if one person has very high reputation, okay, but when under that kind of situation, if you have one or two person start to abandon this candidate, okay, then you start to see this candidate start to lose in vote, right? So if Ali and City, you don't like the person, you are going to influence many people. And when too many people start to influence by both of you, then the supporting rate start to decline. But the decline is not linear. It's all of a sudden a huge decline, right? So that is what we call cooperativity. And so you can see all phenomena is operating in a cooperative fashion, not only in hemoglobin, but also in many life-related behavior. Okay, can you also translate in, to your student?
Sure lah, Sir. Oke, jadi yang tadi Prof. Ko menjelaskan tentang cooperativity, itu cara kerja bagaimana hemoglobin itu bekerja, itu sebenarnya bisa dianalogkan dalam kehidupan sosial. Jadi di dalam kehidupan sosial, cooperativity itu apa namanya, seperti halnya promosi ya. Contoh seperti ini, Ali sebagai apa namanya, mungkin oksigen yang akan diikatkan begitu ya, dan hemoglobinnya adalah komting begitu. Nah, dengan Ali berkomunikasi dengan komting, maka komting ini kemudian akan menyebarkan info yang di-share Ali ke seluruh anggotanya begitu ya. Jadi seperti halnya berantai. Dan hemoglobin ini dia sifatnya tadi disampaikan tidak linier, ya karena memang ketika apa namanya, ketika dia sudah mulai mengikat dengan oksigen satu, dia akan mempermudah hemoglobin lainnya itu untuk mengikat oksigen yang lain begitu. Mungkin penjelasan Pali kurang jelas kali ya, tetapi nanti bisa kita diskusikan lagi di lain kesempatan. Tapi yang jelas saya akan cari bagaimana memberikan contoh yang lebih mudah lagi. Mungkin tidak dosen. Tadi kalau Prof. Ko menyampaikan contohnya adalah seperti halnya pada saat pemilihan presiden. Ya, cooperativity yang dilakukan oleh society atau oleh masyarakat itu ketika ada sekelompok masyarakat, sekelompok orang yang suka ngepro dengan calon presiden satu, maka sekelompok ini bisa mempengaruhi masyarakat yang ada di daerah situ, kayak gitu. Jadi intinya tidak perlu si calon presiden ini mempromosikan dirinya langsung ke dalam ke seluruh masyarakat, tetapi cukup 1, 2, 3 orang, dan 1, 2, 3 orang ini yang nantinya akan membantu promosi tersebut, begitu. Lauso, you may continue, please.
Okay, so if you look at the graph right here, you can see when oxygen binds to one subunit, it starts to help another 3 subunits. Much easier to get oxygen. Okay, from here to here, all the way to here. Okay, so this is what we call cooperative binding. And I would like to show you the cooperativity can be calculated. Okay, so if you want to say, just give you one example. How cooperative of your team? For example, Ali, you have a team with 4 members, okay? And you want to say you are very cooperative. And if you want to give the score, then here is the mathematical model right here, okay? And this mathematical model is called the Hill plot, which is on the page 210. 210页，好 ，OK。If you go to page 210, you see the Hill plot. Okay, the Hill plot is developed by a Nobel laureate called Hill in 1913. Okay, this person actually get a Nobel Prize in 1921. Okay, he developed a formula that gives you the quantitative measure of cooperativity. Okay, that is called N. Okay, So if you look at the graph right here, this is myoglobin. See, myoglobin has only one subunit. So myoglobin is working independently, unlike hemoglobin. And therefore, the force score of cooperativity for myoglobin is 1. Okay? And the force score for hemoglobin is actually 4. But if you look at, okay, this is the Hill coefficient 4. If you have a 4 subunit, and if each subunit are fully cooperative, then the Hill coefficient should be 4. But in reality, the hemoglobin has a cooperativity only 2.8. What does it mean? It means the hemoglobin in your body and my body are not perfectly cooperative. Okay. So if you ask the question, is the design of your body perfect?
No.
That's a good answer. Okay. So that means we are still getting better, because if you are putting human being in the environment that has a lot of oxygen saturation, then if you everybody is going to have for example, African and Asian people has different hemoglobin. Maybe 99.9% of the amino acid sequence are similar, but the very small 0.1% of the amino acid sequence is going to make a big difference in the cooperativity, right? Under normal environment, everybody can survive. But if you have fluctuating oxygen, then the cooperativity of hemoglobin matters for your survival, right? 听得懂我的意思吗？
So may I have a question?
Yes.
So you are explaining to us about the cooperativity, and then by the figure 7.31, this is all we know, that the cooperativity of hemoglobin is not perfect. It should be 4, but then the actual cooperativity of the hemoglobin is only 2.8. So
yes.
this score, is it because of the red blood cell consume the oxygen, or what happened?
No. This is
No.
the nature structure of hemoglobin in human. Okay.
So this is not related with the red blood function.
Well, this is telling you that if you want to sustain survival, 2.8 is sufficient to sustain your survival.
Okay.
And it also means the design of your body is good, but not yet perfect. Okay, the design of the hemoglobin is good, but not perfect. Okay, it's very similar to ask the question. If you ask the question, in your family, for example, you have 10 brothers. Okay, you have 10 brothers helping your father, right? Then you ask the question, is all your brother cooperative? The answer is yes, because they are helping each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you ask another question, are they perfectly helping each other? Are they perfectly cooperative? So what is your answer?
Perfect, it's not perfect, but they are still helping.
That's right. And that level of the cooperativity is already sufficient to sustain your survival in your family.
Yep.
Right? So from here, we also learned that the people tend to think that if you look at the cell, you see a lot of good design, very nice design, very dedicated. Then people tend to ask the question, this is made by God, right?
Yeah.
And it should be perfect, right?
Right.
But the actual answer is, if you measure all components in your body, it's not yet perfect. Okay. So that is very important message for all of you. So we are getting perfect, but not yet the best. Okay.
Also, another questions. We have one question from my student. His name is Rahesa Shabinisma. The question is, as a COVID-19 causes shortness of breath, is it accompanied by changes in the red blood cell and hemoglobin?
Well, this is a very good question. The Indonesian student asked a very important question here. So now we have the COVID-19, right? Okay, just assuming that everybody got infected. Okay, if everybody got infected, then you have survivor and you have a non-survivor, right? And just to give you assumption that everybody has hemoglobin, but the hemoglobin variability is going to affect your cooperativity, right? So who is going to survive? The one who has high cooperativity or the one has low cooperativity? Please answer the question.
Well, I think the one who has high cooperativity.
That's true, yes. Because when you get oxygen and you can release massively to your body, when oxygen is changing with only small percentage, right? So this is one example that your student is giving. The challenge like this, that is going to fluctuate your oxygen supply, then this kind of environment is going to have the natural selection on human. So for those who cannot survive, are less likely to produce their descendant, right? You have no chance to have a kids because you cannot survive, right? So that is very good. It's very good question that raised by your student. But he asked me whether, can you repeat the question?
Okay, so the question is, as a COVID-19 causes shortness of breath, is it accompanied by changes in the red blood cell and hemoglobin?
Okay, I don't know. Maybe you can look at the data, but it looks like it's not the problem in the blood producing capacity. It looks like the collapse of alveolar. Yeah, the lung cannot function correctly. Especially, right, there are a lot of fluid blocking the interaction of the oxygen and the hemoglobin in your alveolar.
Okay, Lose, I ask a time to explain to this student and to the rest. Ya, jadi Rahesa, jadi yang disampaikan oleh Prof. Untuk menjawab pertanyaannya Rahesa bahwa tidak ada, Prof. Beliau jujur bahwa beliau tidak tahu. Karena belum ada bukti ilmiah terkait dengan penelitian tentang itu. Dan beliau menjelaskan bahwa hemoglobin dan daya ikat hemoglobin pada darah itu belum tentu berhubungan dengan COVID, karena COVID-19 itu adanya
生命现象，实际上
pernapasan
它
yang
在物竞
pendek
天择的过程
itu
中，它的
karena
筛选门槛实际上是不做细。
kegagalan fungsi dari
那什么样的国家它的
alveoli ya
存活率
dari
会比较
alveoli
高？
di
你知道
paru-paru
吗？
kita dan adanya
你知道什么样的国家
itu
它的存活率会比
adalah
较
kan
高？
penyakit yang disebabkan oleh virus ya dan itu
就是它有办法去制定一些
menyebabkan
规则，来排除
meningkatnya
所有影响合作的行
cairan
为，
di dalam paru-paru. Jadi yang beliau sampaikan tidak
然后
ada
它可以
virusnya
落实
dan
这
beliau
件事
belum
情，
tahu karena belum ada penelitian yang
你的这个国家的存活率就会比较高。Okay, Ali,
ya
let me
Allah.
just give you one more example that help the people understand how important the cooperativity is for the survival. Okay, so now you understand that the cooperativity is one of the criteria for natural selection. Okay, so when you have the shortage in any valuable resource, then the one has the high cooperativity tend to survive compared to those who has low cooperativity, right? Okay, so let me just give you another example in the nation management. Okay, what kind of the nation is more likely to survive to challenge? It's very similar. Okay, in almost every nation, they develop the system that is help to eliminate any human behavior that is not cooperative. I'm not honest to you. Is that going to help the cooperation?
No, sir.
Obviously not, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you can see that if you look at law or the moral education in virtually all human systems, you can see the fraud, every kind of behavior is discouraged by moral and law, right?
Mm.
And what kind of the country, if you have the country that is making the rule and enforce the rule and doing 100%, then the country tend to run very well, right? So that means if you can lowering the human behavior that against the cooperativity means the cooperation between individuals, then the entire system is going to be survive for longer period. And that kind of the system are more likely to replicate, becoming the mainstream of the human society. Is that understandable for everybody?
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. So if you ask the interaction between people, so you can have all kind of free behavior between people, right? 所以人跟人之间有各式各样的自由行为。Okay. So everybody, you interact with your friend, you have your own way to interact with your friend, right? But you can classify all behavior into two classes. One is promoting cooperativity, and another one is decreasing cooperativity. Then you will start to find that the law is made against all behavior that against cooperativity. Okay, so this is very important because this is from the perspective of survival, right? So if you go to a society, then people start to ask you a question. Okay, I see a guy doing this or doing that, right? And I feel that behavior is good, or I feel that behavior is bad. How do you make such kind of judgment? It's based on what? You need to have a criteria, right?
Yeah.
You see all kinds of free behavior in your society. And how can you judge this behavior is good, that behavior is bad?
Well, I think like what you said, Lasse, it should be based on the criteria, and then every regions or every country, they have their own. And this criteria is, how to say that, it's a form as a rule or law. So
Yes.
if the guy is doing this and our judgment is bad, it's because he probably broke the rule, broke the law. So we can say that this guy is bad.
Yeah, the rule,
Mm.
right? And you tend to see the rule is related to how cooperative you are, right?
Yeah, right, correct.
So when you look at the law, you want to go back and think about what is the meaning, why this is good, why this is bad, right? People tend to not think about why this is good or not why this is bad, right?
Mm.
So this is very important knowledge for you to learn from the molecular interaction inside the human at molecular level. Okay, should we take a 10 minutes break or we should keep going? 你们想要休息一下吗？还是要继续？ Okay, let me finish in 30 minutes. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, let me just finish in 30 minutes. 所以刚刚讲的都听得懂嘛，对不对 ？OK， 好。Okay, let me just give you one example about the variation among human. Okay, if you look at the population in West Africa, you see the hemoglobin, the red blood cell has the shape like this. Okay, you see right here, you can see this is the normal hemoglobin right here. Okay, and you see this is like a sickle, like a
Half
shape.
moon. Yeah.
Right, half moon, right? And this is the mutated, the red blood cell that has mutated hemoglobin.
Mm.
Okay, and where can you find this kind of the people who has this kind of hemoglobin? It's mostly in West Africa. Okay, let me just look at that. Okay, you can see under normal condition, the one has the mutated hemoglobin with this shape of red blood cell has lower survival rate. Okay, the reason is because the oxygen carry capacity is going to change, okay, because of the mutation. Okay, let me show you, let me just show you where is the place that has the mutation. Okay. Just a second. Okay, can you see the highlight here? Okay, yeah, if you look at this, that is called the sickle cell. And the sickle cell, the reason why the red blood cell looks like that is because the one amino acid in the hemoglobin are substituted by one amino acid called valine. Okay, and this kind of blood has been discovered in 1956. Okay, and only one amino acid is different. The entire structure changed. Okay, let me show you what is the difference right here. Okay, if you look at here, right here, this is the hemoglobin structure right here. Okay, and if you see the interaction between valine 6, this is valine, so one amino acid right here, valine, on the beta chain of one hemoglobin molecule, and the hydrophobic path formed by phenylalanine 85 and leucine 88. Okay, and that is going to cause the aggregation of the hemoglobin. Okay, you want to understand that the amino acid interaction is based on whether or not you have the same property. For example, valine, leucine, and phenylalanine are hydrophobic, right? So hydrophobic molecules tend to aggregate together, and therefore the all hemoglobin is going to aggregate together. Okay, so in normal people, the hemoglobin molecule will not aggregate together, but if you have the mutation here, then you tend to have the aggregation of the hemoglobin. It's going to be like this. Okay, you see the fiber structure, and that is the aggregation of the hemoglobin, simply because of the one mutation in amino acid. Okay, and the consequences, the entire red cell is going like this shape. Okay, and that is also going to affect the oxygen carry capacity. How much? Actually, not much. Okay, then you ask the question, if you have this kind of mutation, is that good for your survival? The answer is, it depends. Okay, it depends. For people under normal life, the mutation is no good for survival. But if you are living in the condition that has, 你们知道那个疟疾怎么讲吗？疟疾。You know malaria? Do you know the disease? Malaria. You have the mosquito bite, right?
Oh,
And
malaria.
Yeah, malaria.
Malaria.
You know, malaria kills a lot of people in Africa, right? People die because of the malaria. Mosquito, they bring this kind of disease.
I think so.
And
Southern Asia also, sir. In Indonesia, we still have facing a lot of malaria cases. Yeah.
Okay, also in Indonesia. Okay, okay. But if you have the mutation like this, then you tend to survive better than those who are normal. Okay. So what kind of, so let's go back to a question. What is the best genetics? Can you define what is the best genetic? Okay, so you have two sequences. One is normal, what we see, the normal hemoglobin that has the valine is not in the position 6. And you have the hemoglobin that has the mutation. So you have two types of hemoglobin. Can you judge who has the best genetics?
I don't know, but I think the one who can adapt fastly.
Yes, this is the best answer. Okay. So if you want to say who has better genetics, that needs to be based on the context of your environment, right? 各位听得懂我在讲什么吗？我们经常在讲说什么样的基因是好基因，对不对？像以今天这个例子，它的 hemoglobin 它有一个氨基酸是突变，另外一个是没有突变，对不对？在正常的状况之下，有突变的生存能力差，但是它在有疟疾的环境，它的生存能力是好的。正常的 hemoglobin 的人是没有办法活下去。Okay, so that will give you a major consequences. Okay, for example, I have the mutation here, but I can survive in the environment that has a lot of mosquito. Okay, so that if you want to define who has the good genetics, then you need to always go back to whether you have the chance to produce your kids. Okay. So when you have the mutation, you have a better chance to produce kids. Then your genetics is going to amplify, right? And your future descendants is going to have, many people is going to have the gene like you. Okay. So whether or not you have the good genetic is really depending on the environment you are sitting. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So who has good genetic? I think Indonesian has good genetics because you have a huge population compared to many countries. So that means the survival advantage for Indonesian must be very good. Okay.
Yeah, I think we are still on the third place, like the biggest population in the world. Lausa, actually, I have a question about the hemoglobin shape. According to the shape of hemoglobin that you said that a lot of Western Africa people, they have this kind of change. The question is there any relationship between different shape of hemoglobin to its cooperativity?
No, actually, well, I'm sure in some case you do have that kind of things. But for the case of the sickle cell is different case. The sickle cell is actually the interaction between hemoglobin molecule. Okay, but I'm sure the one you are talking about, that certainly for in the past maybe several million years, we do have a wide range of the genetic variability. And I believe for those you can survive until now, it's obviously the best for this environment. Yeah. And if you ask the question, is it possible that you're going to have the hemoglobin mutation for the future? It is possible.
It is possible.
Because when you have the cell division, you are subject to mutation, right? So that means we are also producing variability, right, for the future. And that is probably going to bring you the higher cooperativity of the hemoglobin for the future. So we are not perfect yet, but we are getting perfect.
Good enough to
Yes.
survive. Yeah.
Yes.
Lausa, we have 2 questions from Indonesian student. Number 1, his name is Kautsar Aptorik. His question is, can we increase the cooperativity on hemoglobin? Well, I think this answer should be no, because as you mentioned that the cooperativity of hemoglobin is ordered by nature, right?
Right.
So we cannot increase the cooperativity. And the second question from Ilham Wijaya, he's asking, in abnormalities in hemoglobin, some disorder can destroy hemoglobin faster than the body can make it, and in which kind of conditions?
Well, okay, let me repeat the question again. So your student is asking the question, if you have the mutation of the hemoglobin, then what would happen, right?
Yes, and especially the conditions, the mutation which can destroy the hemoglobin compared to its productions.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Okay, the reason I don't know the answer is because, for example, if you really have such kind of case, right?
Mm.
And you have the mutated hemoglobin, and it's going to be selected by the environment, because if you have the mutation and you cannot survive, then I'm not going to see you, right?
Yeah.
And your genetics is not going to be existed on Earth, right? So this is a very difficult question to answer, simply because this kind of things. If you survive, you are existed, then I say maybe. Okay, but for those, most of the mutation that can bring loss of function, right? And some of the genetic mutation lose a little bit, and some lose more. And if you lose more, then you cannot survive. Then we don't know whether, we cannot observe this kind of phenomenon. So that is very difficult question for me to answer.
Yeah,
but it's a very good question though.
It is a good question. He can keep it, and he can, he can explore for his
Right.
final project or so on. Yeah, you may continue, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The reason I'm going to talk about the hemoglobin is because during exercise, the oxygen consumption is increasing, right? And it's proportional to the rate of ATP synthesis. Okay, so if your body is going to synthesize ATP faster, then you are going to consume oxygen faster. Okay, and the reason is because oxygen is the final acceptor of electron. Okay, the final acceptor of electron. And you understand that when you consuming energy for ATP synthesis, you are consuming the reducing compound, like a carbohydrate and fat. Okay, so they are reducing compound. The reducing compound tend to lose electron. Okay, so in your body, you need to have the acceptor to accept those electrons from carbohydrate and fat. Okay, if you don't have oxygen, then it's very difficult for carbohydrate and fat to lose electron. So that is the reason that oxygen are so important for your survival. Okay, so if your carbohydrate and fat cannot lose electron, lose electron is oxidation, right? So if you cannot lose the electron of your carbohydrate and fat, that means you cannot have a fast breakdown of carbohydrate and fat. And therefore, the ATP production rate is going to be very, very slow. Okay, so you understand. That is very important for someone who study exercise science. Okay. Can we measure the hemoglobin concentration in your body?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, the answer is yes. The technique is very simple. And one of the reasons is because the hemoglobin has color.
Mm.
Okay, so the color of hemoglobin is red. Okay, and when the oxygen is not bound to hemoglobin, then the color changed into purple, right? So you have two colors that are able to absorb the red light, the light that it can reflect the red color, and you can absorb the light that and also reflect the purple color. So that means you are able to measure the hemoglobin and the oxyhemoglobin concentration easily. Okay, so in the lab we have the equipment that is called the near-infrared device. Okay, let me just explain. This has major application in exercise physiology right now.
Mm.
The near-infrared equipment are able to transmit light into your tissues. Okay, and your tissues is going to absorb the light that irradiated from hemoglobin and the oxyhemoglobin. Real time. Okay, so you have the chance to measure how much light is going back to your detector. So you have the device like this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have a transmitter, light transmitter and light detector. So you can put on your tissues and irradiate the light. And those light is going to be absorbed in certain wavelengths by hemoglobin and the oxyhemoglobin. And the rest part of the light is going to bounce back to the detector. And therefore you can calculate how much light has been absorbed in certain wavelengths. Then you are able to measure the hemoglobin and the oxyhemoglobin concentration real time. Okay, so if maybe it's difficult to demonstrate by this kind of communication, but you're all welcome to come visit us.
Mm-hmm.
So Ali, when you are here, we don't have the near infrared yet. Do we have?
We did.
Oh, we did. Okay,
Yeah,
okay. So you know the principle.
Yeah.
Okay.
The last measurement that I haven't learned until the day that I went back to Indonesia is PCR also. You order me
Okay.
to learn, but then the time is up. Yeah.
Okay. That's fine. You can always go back and learn.
I'll
So
make
does
it
everybody know? Yeah. Does everybody know how to use the near infrared device? Yeah. Not yet. Okay. Maybe you can find time to rehearsal. You know how to do, right? You're expert. No? The near infrared. Not you. Okay. So who has the experience? You?
Teacher OM teach us how to do.
Okay. Next week. Good. Professor Ho is going to demonstrate next week to the student. But Ali, is very difficult for them to demonstrate on the screen. Okay.
Yeah.
But please
sir.
invite your student come to University of Taipei, and then we can demonstrate.
Sure. I can bring them some, and then they will for sure need to learn about it. But I think the easy way, like the fastest way, I am going to find a kind of video on YouTube related to how NIR works, and I'm going to show them.
Yeah. Okay. Just to just give you the final remark about the lecture, you have already learned that the property of the hemoglobin, and you also learn that we have the way to measure it. Okay, then I would like to ask some question for you. Okay, if you can measure the hemoglobin concentration in your brain, okay, you know hemoglobin has two parts. One is oxyhemoglobin and another one is deoxyhemoglobin, right? If you add those together, it's called total hemoglobin, right? The total hemoglobin is the way to trace your blood, okay? So if the total hemoglobin increase in your brain, that means your brain is attracting more blood, okay? So if the total hemoglobin is declining in your brain, that means your brain are losing blood and some tissues are taking blood, right? Okay. So let me just ask you the question. If you do exercise, for example, if you do squat, squat exercise, 你们知道深蹲吗？哈。And you understand that when you do squat, your muscle is going to require a lot of oxygen, right? The muscle in your leg is going to be demanding on oxygen, right? So it is conceivable that the blood is going to the brain or going to the muscle. The blood need to make a choice, right? Okay, so may I ask the question? If you do in squat, what happened to your brain hemoglobin and what happened to your leg hemoglobin? 听得懂我在问什么吗？如果你在做深蹲的时候，你的大脑需要血液，需要 hemoglobin， 你的腿需要血液，那你的血液会怎么决定？ So in your body, how do you decide where to go?
So may I answer?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so I think as you said that the hemoglobin or our body generally, the body needs to make decision as soon as it cools. So when we are doing exercise, for example, like squat or maybe lunges, whatever it is, then the blood should go to the active tissue which is working on it. And what happened to the hemoglobin on the brain? It should be like the total should be decreased, probably like more to the oxyhemoglobin, and no more the oxy than the oxyhemoglobin, because the oxygen on the hemoglobin being used.
Well, that is very good hypothesis, but you need to bear that hypothesis in your mind, but look at the real result. And the real result is a little bit different. The real result is that the total hemoglobin concentration, that includes oxy and deoxyhemoglobin, okay, in your brain, is going to increase, especially the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, not the oxy. The oxy has more, but the oxy has less. Okay, so that is very interesting. But what is the implication of this? Well, Ali answered a very good question. If you do squat, 如果做深蹲的话，你的大脑的血液供应量是会增加的，是会增加。然后是 oxy 增加还是 deoxy 增加，哪一个增加比较多？ So I'm asking your junior student that if you do squat, then the answer is the active tissues like a brain is going to have the blood pulled into the brain. Okay. Then I ask the question, oxy and deoxy, which one has major proportion? The answer is actually yes, it's oxy, not deoxy. Okay. We thought that the tissues is going to attracting a lot of oxygen from hemoglobin, and therefore you should have a lot of deoxyhemoglobin, right? That's our scientific expectation. But in reality, we found that it's not. It's actually the oxyhemoglobin is more. And the reason of that is because the vascular regulation is on the top of molecular regulation. So today we are learning the molecular regulation, but actually the physiological regulation is higher level. Okay, would you like to explain to your student?
Yeah.
所以你可以看，
Yeah.
所以你可以了解到一件事，就是那个
Oke, jadi tadi Prof menanyakan ketika kita melakukan olahraga, contoh gerakan squat, itu pertanyaannya adalah antara antara jaringan otot yang sedang bekerja selama olahraga dengan di otak kita itu lebih banyak mana konsentrasi hemoglobinnya. Sedangkan pada dasarnya tubuh kita itu akan sesegera mungkin merespon kondisi yang sedang dialami. Kira-kira di mana? Tadi Pali mencoba menjawab di mana di otak. Ya, tadi Pali mencoba menjawab bahwa darah dan hemoglobin pada topik pembahasan kali ini dia akan lari ke jaringan yang sedang bekerja di mana itu otot rangka, bagian lower extremities kalau itu merupakan gerakan squat, dan apa yang terjadi di otak itu mengalami perubahan proporsi total hemoglobin. Tadi Pali menjawabnya adalah deoksihemoglobin itu harusnya lebih banyak ketimbang yang oksihemoglobin, namun ternyata tebakannya Pali itu salah, ya, kurang tepat, ya. Jadi Prof menyatakan bahwa ketika kita berolahraga malah oksihemoglobinnya itu yang lebih tinggi ketimbang yang dioksi. Dan begitu mungkin Via mau menambahkan enggak? Mungkin ada sesuatu yang kelupaan. Ini ada namanya Mbak Lutfia Dewi, dia teman baiknya Pali dan panggilannya Mbak Via aja ya, karena Mbak Via ini lagi S3 ini, lagi mau mulai S3 dan beliau Mbak Via ini ada di Taiwan, cuma lagi dalam proses karantina. Tadi yang saya sampaikan ke adik-adik ini ada tambahannya enggak?
Sudah bagus.
Sudah bagus. Insya Allah lah sesegera mungkin saya menyusul ya. Jadi
ya, tunggu ya Gigi ya.
Iya, sure. Can yep. Lause, I have explained to my student. You may continue, please. Lause, I think you are still muting your microphone.
Okay. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. We have the doctoral student, is the classmate of Fia. Okay. She asked the question. She said, if you're doing squat, what is the distribution of hemoglobin to the brain and the contracting muscle? Who has the priority?
The muscle.
Okay, so can anyone answer the question? Brain and muscle, who has the priority?
Yeah. Fia, do you have the answer?
来猜一下。
Yeah, my thought, I think should be the muscle, because the muscle is working. The muscle need more. What do you think, Fee?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not
Well-
sure of my answer. That's why.
Well, Ali make a good hypothesis, but we need to see the result. But okay, but this is a very good question. Okay. So you open your hypothesis, but you want to keep in mind that when you look at the result, you want to be neutral. Okay. So you don't want to have, when you see the result is not the same as my hypothesis, then you reject the hypothesis. Okay. But let's come back to the question. How do you judge who has the priority? 你们要怎么去判断说大脑跟肌肉谁是优先？你们在方法上面怎么去做这个判断？ Well, first you want to understand one thing, that when you are consuming oxygen, then the tissues is going to have oxygen deficiency, right? Okay, and then you're going to have the fall in the oxygen saturation. Okay, the oxygen saturation is the deoxyhemoglobin divided by the total hemoglobin. That is desaturation. Or another way, you can use oxyhemoglobin divided by total hemoglobin. So that is the ratio of saturation. You can use both. Desaturation rate or saturation rate. Okay, whatever you want to choose. Okay, so let me ask you the question. If you do exercise, squat, for example, the blood is pouring to the muscle, but the blood is also pulling to the brain because you need to control your posture, right? You need to control the posture, and you also need to send command to your muscle to lift weight, right? So you have the saw here. The saw is telling your muscle that please work, okay? So brain is going to have a very small period of oxygen consumption, and the muscle is going to have the short period of oxygen consumption. Then how do you use the way to judge who has the priority? 你们要如何判断说，用数据来判断说大脑是优先还是肌肉是优先？
贴两个，看谁的秒数，谁上升的时候秒数比较高。
That's very good. Okay. The students answer the question that you can have install the probe right here in your muscle and in your brain and also your walking muscle. Okay. And when you do squat, then you have very brief period of decline in oxygen saturation. Very brief period. Okay. But it's going to recover, right? So if you are recover faster, for example, if you have faster recovery in muscle than brain, that means the priority goes to the muscle. Vice versa.
Vice versa.
Right? So if your brain has the priority, the brain should recover faster than the muscle, right? So that means the oxygen deficiency, the magnitude of the oxygen deficiency is the criteria for you to saying that who has the priority. Okay, so that is very good answer. Okay, the time is up. So just if you have any question, you can 回答他。 So if you have any question, please, last question if you want.
So far, we don't have it, Lause, so we have only like the previous questions, but I would like to inform to all the students, including Taiwanese student, that the next week meeting, probably the link of Zoom will be different, but the meeting ID and the passcode is the same. So as I wrote on the flyer of your virtual class, that there is a meeting ID 45391833392. That is the meeting ID, and for the passcode is IKOR FIK15, and yeah, should be all right.
Good. You have sent me the email, right? You sent me the link, right?
Yeah, but probably the link will be different, but I will update
Okay,
you. Sir.
sure.
I will update.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, you want to say goodbye to everybody, to your juniors? 你们学长跟你们
Well,
say goodbye.
so it was really really happy to see you and
okay,
to have you in the same class. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye bye, 老师，再见。
Thank you. Yay.